My name is Maya. I grew up in a small town with my mother and my younger sister. We were not rich, but we loved each other deeply. Our home was small, but it was warm and full of laughter. Life was not always easy for us. My mother worked as a cleaner in a hotel, and I started working in a clothing shop when I finished school. My sister was still a student, and I wanted to help pay for her books and clothes. At the shop, I sold shirts, jeans, and shoes. I smiled at customers and folded clothes neatly on the shelves. The pay was low, but I was thankful to have work. Every month, I paid the rent, bought food, and kept a little for the bus fare. Some months, the money was not enough. I had to choose between paying the electricity bill and buying new shoes for my sister. Sometimes I went to bed worried about tomorrow. But I told myself, we will be fine. We always find a way. One rainy evening, as I was cleaning the counter, a man walked in. His dark hair was wet and water dripped from his jacket. He had a warm smile and eyes that seemed kind. "Do you sell umbrellas?" he asked. I shook my head and told him we had just sold the last one. He gave a small laugh and said, "It's okay. I'll survive." He picked out a sweater and a pair of gloves. As I wrapped them, he asked for my name and I told him. He said his name was Ryan. "Before we go on, tell me, where in the world are you listening from? I love hearing from you. Now, let's go back to the story." The next day, to my surprise, Ryan came again. This time he bought socks. We talked about the weather and about how the rain made the streets look like glass. I thought he was just being friendly, but he came back again the next week. He told me he worked in sales and traveled often. I liked the way he listened to me. He looked directly into my eyes when I spoke, and he never seemed in a rush. He asked about my family, and I found myself telling him more than I told most people. One Friday evening, when I closed the shop, I saw him waiting outside. He held a small umbrella in his hand and smiled. "Let me walk you home," he said. The street was shining with rain and the air was cool. As we walked, I told him about my mother's health problems. Some days she could not go to work because she felt too weak. I told him my sister was clever and wanted to study at university. He told me about his parents in another city and how he sent them money every month. When we reached my door, he looked at me and said softly, "I want to see you again." I felt shy, but my heart was warm. I told him yes. That night, I lay in bed smiling, thinking of his kind eyes. We began meeting in a small cafe near my work. The cafe was quiet, with old wooden chairs and soft music in the background. We shared tea and cake, talking for hours about simple things, books, movies, and our childhoods. One evening, he asked me what my dreams were. I told him I wanted a simple life. A small home, a loving family, and peace. He smiled and said he liked women who valued family. His words made me feel special. Over the next weeks, he started bringing me small gifts. A scarf, a box of chocolates, a book he thought I would enjoy. I had never been given gifts like these before. I thanked him, but inside I wondered why he was being so generous. One night as we walked home, I asked him why he kept buying things for me. He laughed and said, "Maya, nothing is free in this world. But for you, I don't mind giving." His words made me happy in the moment, but later I thought about them again. So I trusted him. He seemed caring, and I believed he wanted the best for me. When my mother's illness got worse and we needed money for her medicine, I told Ryan about it. The next day, he gave me an envelope with cash. I felt guilty, but I accepted it because we truly needed help. "I'll pay you back," I told him. He only smiled and said, "You can pay me back in your own way someday." I didn't fully understand what he meant, but I didn't ask. At the time, I thought I was lucky to have met a man like him. He was kind, charming, and generous. I didn't see any danger in his words or actions. But soon I would learn the real meaning of nothing is free. The weeks passed and Ryan became part of my routine. He often met me after work, and sometimes he even came to my house to bring fruit or flowers for my mother. My sister liked him and said he was too good to be true. I laughed at her words, not knowing how right she was. One Saturday he asked if I wanted to see the city lights from the top of a tall hotel. I had never been inside such a place. The elevator felt like it was flying, and the view from the rooftop made me forget my worries for a moment. The city sparkled like stars had fallen onto the streets. We stood there in silence for a while. Then he said, "You deserve more than this life, Maya. You deserve comfort, nice things, and freedom from worry." His words touched me and I felt my eyes become warm. No one had ever spoken to me like that before. Over the next days his gifts became bigger. A gold bracelet, a new phone, even a dress from a shop I could never afford. I told him I could not accept such things. He smiled and said, "Remember, nothing is free. But you will make me happy in other ways." I asked him what he meant, but he only gave me a long look. Something about that look made me feel both curious and afraid. Still, I pushed the thought away. I wanted to believe he was just being kind. One evening he asked me to go with him to another city for the weekend. "It will be fun," he said. "We'll eat in nice restaurants, walk in the park, and forget about everything." I told him I could not leave my mother and sister, but he kept asking. "I'll take care of everything," he said. "Just say yes." I thought about the money he had given for my mother's medicine, the gifts he had brought, and how much he had done for me. I felt that maybe I owed him something. So I agreed. When we arrived in the city, he took me to a hotel. It was beautiful, with soft carpets and shining lights. At dinner, he ordered expensive dishes I could barely pronounce. I felt like I was in another world. Later that night, in the quiet of the room, he came close to me and said, "Maya, you know nothing is free. Now it's time for you to give something back." My heart started beating fast. I understood what he meant and fear rose inside me. I told him I wasn't ready. His smile faded and he leaned back in his chair. "I've done so much for you," he said slowly. "Do you think people just give without expecting anything? You're smarter than that." For the rest of the night I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window looking out at the city lights. They no longer looked magical. They looked cold and far away. I wished I could go home, but we were hours away from my town. The next morning he acted as if nothing had happened. We had breakfast and he took me to see a park full of flowers. He held my hand and told me stories about his travels. I tried to smile, but my heart felt heavy. When we returned to my town, I felt different. I avoided his calls for a few days. My sister noticed I was quieter than usual. "Is something wrong?" she asked. I told her I was just tired from work. But Ryan did not give up. He came to the shop one evening and waited outside until I finished. "You're avoiding me," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "I don't like being ignored, Maya." I told him I needed space, but he reminded me of the money and gifts. "You can't just take and walk away," he said. "You know what I want." I felt trapped, like I was caught in a net I couldn't escape from. That night I cried in my bed. I realized that his kindness had come with strings attached. I thought about his first words, "Nothing is free," and finally understood the truth behind them. The days after our trip were heavy. I still went to work, but my mind was far away. Every time the shop door opened, I feared it might be Ryan. I jumped when the phone rang, afraid it would be his voice on the other end. One evening as I was sweeping the shop floor, I saw him outside. He stood with his hands in his pockets, watching me through the glass. My stomach turned. I knew I had to face him. When I stepped out, he smiled faintly. "You've been avoiding me," he said. His tone was calm, but I could feel the tension in his words. "We need to talk." We walked to the corner of the street. The air was cold and I could hear my own breathing. He told me he felt hurt that I didn't appreciate what he had done for me. "Do you know how many women would love to be in your place?" he asked. I stayed quiet. I didn't know what to say. Every gift, every moment we had shared now felt like a chain around my neck. He reminded me again of the money for my mother's medicine. "You owe me, Maya," he said, his voice low. When I got home, my sister was in the kitchen cooking. She asked if I had eaten, but I said I wasn't hungry. I went straight to my room and closed the door. My mother called out to me, but I told her I was tired. I didn't want them to see me cry. That night, I lay awake thinking about everything. How had I let things go so far? I had believed his kindness was real. I had believed his words about wanting the best for me. But now all I could see was his control. The next day he sent me a message. "Meet me at the cafe. We need to settle this." My hands shook as I read it. I didn't reply. A few hours later, another message came. "If you think you can take from me and walk away, you're wrong." I felt trapped. If I went to him, I would be pressured again. If I ignored him, I feared what he might do. My mind was full of what-ifs. What if he told lies about me? What if he came to my workplace and caused trouble? For the first time, I thought about telling my sister the truth. But I felt ashamed. I didn't want her to know that I had taken gifts and money without thinking about the cost. I didn't want her to see me as weak. That evening as I walked home, I felt like someone was following me. I turned my head and saw a car driving slowly behind me. My heart pounded. It was Ryan's car. He rolled down the window and said, "Get in, Maya. We're talking tonight." I froze when I saw his car beside me. The street was quiet, and the only sound was the low hum of his engine. My first thought was to run, but my legs felt heavy as if they didn't belong to me. "Get in, Maya," Ryan said, leaning toward the open window. His voice was calm, but there was no warmth in it. "We need to talk." I shook my head and kept walking. My heart was beating so loudly I could hear it in my ears. The car rolled slowly next to me, matching my steps. "You can't keep ignoring me," he said. "I've been patient, but my patience has limits." When I reached the corner of the street, he stopped the car and stepped out. The cold night air wrapped around us, but my face felt hot. "Please, Ryan," I said quietly. "I just need some space." He stepped closer, his eyes locking on mine. "Space? After everything I've done for you? Do you think the world works like that? Nothing is free, Maya. Nothing." His words cut like a blade. People walked past us, but no one stopped. To them, we probably looked like a couple having a normal disagreement. I wished someone would notice that my hands were shaking. I wished someone would help me. "I'll pay you back," I said, my voice trembling. Just tell me how much. I tried to sound strong, but I felt small. He laughed without joy. It's not about the money. It's about respect. It's about what you promised me without saying it. The way he looked at me made my stomach twist. I didn't answer. I turned and walked quickly down the street, not looking back. His voice followed me. Think about it, Maya. You owe me. That night I locked my bedroom door and sat in the dark. My mother knocked and asked if I was all right. I told her I was tired from work. I didn't want her to hear the fear in my voice. Over the next few days I avoided the places where he might be. I left work by the back door and stayed inside during my lunch breaks. But the messages kept coming. Some were gentle, I miss you. Some were sharp, you used me. And others made my heart race. You can't hide forever. I deleted them, but the words stayed in my head. Even in my sleep I dreamed of his voice. I woke up more tired than when I went to bed. Finally, I made a choice. I couldn't carry this alone anymore. One evening, I sat with my sister in our room and told her everything, from the first time I met Ryan to the night at the hotel, to the messages that made my skin crawl. Her face went pale. Maya, this is not love. This is control. You have to end it completely. Block him, change your routes, tell your boss. And if he comes here, we call the police. Her words were firm, and for the first time I felt someone was standing on my side. But fear still pulled at me. What if he gets angry? What if he hurts you or Mama? I asked. We'll handle it together, she said. But you can't let him think you belong to him. She reached for my phone and started blocking his number. My hands were sweating, but I didn't stop her. The next day I told my boss about the situation. She was worried and promised to watch the shop entrance. She even offered to call security if Ryan showed up. I felt embarrassed but also a little safer. That evening when I walked home I kept looking over my shoulder. Every sound made me turn my head. But this time there was no car behind me. No voice calling my name. Still, I knew it wasn't over. People like Ryan didn't just walk away. He wanted something and he believed I owed it to him. I had no idea what he would do next. But I was ready to fight for my freedom. A week passed without seeing Ryan. I started to hope he had moved on. My days felt lighter and I could finally breathe again. But deep down I knew it was too soon to feel safe. One evening as I was closing the shop, my boss came to me with a worried face. Maya, there's a man waiting outside, she whispered. I think it's him. My heart jumped. I peered through the glass and saw Ryan leaning against his car, arms crossed. He looked calm, almost friendly, but I knew better now. Go out the back, my boss said. But before I could move, he spotted me and waved. I froze. I didn't want to run forever. My sister's voice echoed in my head. You can't let him think you belong to him. I stepped outside, keeping my distance. What do you want, Ryan? I asked, my voice steady. He smiled as if we were old friends. I just want talk. No anger, no games. I've been thinking, maybe I was too harsh before. I shook my head. You weren't harsh. You were clear. You wanted something I can't give you. That's why this ends here. His smile faded. After everything I gave you? After all the help? His voice grew colder. You think you can just walk away? Yes, I said firmly. Because I don't owe you my life, my body, or my freedom. I never did. For a moment his face twisted with anger. Then he laughed, but it was not a happy sound. You've changed, Maya. I liked you better when you were sweet and grateful. I felt my hands shaking, but I stood my ground. I'm still grateful for the help, but I won't pay you back the way you want. Nothing is free, I understand that now. And the price you ask is too high. He stared at me for a long time. Finally, he stepped back and opened his car door. You'll regret this, he said quietly before driving away. I went home that night feeling both scared and strong. My sister listened as I told her what happened. You did the right thing, she said. If he comes back, we're ready. Days turned into weeks. Ryan didn't appear at my work or my home again. Sometimes I wondered if he had truly gone or if he was just waiting. But I refused to live in fear. I learned to walk with my head high. I focused on my family, on saving money, and on small dreams I could build without someone's strings attached. I started believing in my own strength. One evening, I walked past the cafe where Ryan and I used to sit. The chairs and tables looked the same, but I felt like a different person. I had lost something, my old trust in people, but I had gained something too. I had learned that kindness without respect is not real kindness. I had learned that love without freedom is not love at all. And I had learned that I would never again accept something that came with a hidden cost. Because now I knew the truth. Nothing is free. But I could choose what I was willing to pay for, and my dignity was not for sale. The days after Ryan's last visit felt strange. I kept expecting him to appear around the corner or send another message. But my phone stayed silent and the streets felt empty without his shadow. I wanted to believe it was over, yet a part of me stayed on guard. At night I checked that the doors were locked twice. When I walked home I looked over my shoulder more than once. Fear does not leave quickly. My sister kept reminding me that I had done the right thing. You stood up for yourself, Maya, she said. That's something to be proud of. I tried to believe her. One afternoon I met my old school friend Lila at the market. She had heard rumors about me and Ryan. People talk, she said gently. They don't know the truth. I felt my face burn. I told her a little about what happened. She didn't judge me. Instead, she said, You're not the first woman to go through this and you won't be the last. But you were brave enough to walk away. Her words made me feel less alone. Over the next weeks, I threw myself into work. I asked my boss for more hours and she agreed. I wanted to rely only on my own money now. Every small paycheck felt like a piece of my freedom coming back. Sometimes, when I passed the places Ryan had taken me, I thought of the girl I was then, trusting, hopeful, and unaware of the cost behind his kindness. I didn't hate her. She didn't know better. But I promised myself to protect her now. One evening, I sat with my mother and sister in our small living room. The TV played softly in the background. My mother smiled and said, Maya, you seem stronger these days. I realized she was right. I was stronger, not because the fear was gone, but because I had faced it and survived. Ryan might return one day or he might disappear forever. Either way, I knew I could stand my ground. Life was not perfect and it never would be free of struggle. But it was mine and I would decide the price I was willing to pay. My dignity, my safety, and my self-respect, those were not for sale.